On the morning of August 21st, 2017, the routine inside the Alton-Tawee household in Farmington Hills, Michigan, was unexpectedly disrupted. 14-year-old Aya Alton-Tawee and her two siblings were accustomed to a strict morning schedule. Each school day, they had to be ready to leave by 6:30 a.m. The mornings usually followed a pattern, and any deviation was immediately noticeable. That morning, however, Aya sensed something was wrong. Her mother, Nada Hirani, had not appeared as usual. Concerned by her absence, Aya began looking for her. As she walked through the house, she noticed something strange in the guest bedroom. The window was wide open, and beside it were a ladder and some cleaning supplies, including a bottle of Tilex and a wet rag. Her eyes moved toward the window, and then down to the patio below. Lying motionless on the ground beneath the window was her mother, Nada. The scene appeared to suggest a tragic fall, perhaps while cleaning. Aya's reaction was immediate. In a state of shock, she screamed, later recalling it was a kind of scream she did not even realize was coming from her own mouth. She rushed to find her older brother, Muhammad, and together they ran downstairs. Aya called 911 as Muhammad followed. Her voice was panicked and desperate as she told the dispatcher, "We need an ambulance." "Oh my God." While Muhammad received CPR instructions over the phone, Aya ran outside to meet the arriving police. Dashcam footage later showed her frantically sprinting up the driveway, leading an officer to her mother. But by the time emergency responders reached Nada Hirani, it was too late. She was already dead. Nada Hirani was born and raised in Syria. She was deeply rooted in her culture and faith, living her early life as a devout Muslim. She eventually married Dr. Basil Alton-Tawee, a man also connected to traditional Islamic values. Together, they built a life in Farmington Hills, Michigan, where they raised 3 children, Muhammad, Aya, and their younger sibling. To those around her, Nada was seen as a dedicated mother, devoted wife, and faithful believer. She wore the hijab and followed the customs expected in her religious and family life. However, as the years passed and she spent more time in the United States, Nada began to change. According to friends and family, she started to find her own voice, stepping away from the role of the submissive wife and pursuing a more independent path. She stopped wearing the hijab and began to express herself more freely. She also took up work as a personal trainer, a move that represented her growing confidence and independence. Her evolving identity brought conflict into her marriage. Her husband, Basil, struggled to accept these changes. The couple's relationship became increasingly strained, marked by tension and control. In 2016, the situation reached a boiling point when Basil was charged with domestic violence for assaulting Nada. He later entered a court-ordered domestic violence program. By 2017, Nada had started dating casually, something that further widened the gap between her and Basil and also troubled her son Muhammad. Those closest to her said she was beginning to truly discover who she was. She was no longer the woman others expected her to be. She was becoming the woman she wanted to be, but that personal growth would soon be cut short in the most tragic way. When investigators arrived at the Alton-Tawee residence on the morning of August 21st, 2017, they were initially presented with what looked like a tragic accident. Nada Hirani's body was found lying on the patio, just beneath an open second-story window. Inside the guest bedroom next to the window, police found a ladder, a bottle of Tilex cleaning spray, and a wet rag. The placement of these items seemed to suggest that Nada had been cleaning the windows and accidentally fallen to her death. At first glance, the setup supported this theory. It was reasonable to believe that she may have lost her balance while cleaning and fallen through the window. However, that explanation quickly began to unravel as investigators started gathering more details. The first major development came from the medical examiner, Dr. Uljabisa J. Dragovic. He determined that Nada had already died before her body ever hit the ground. His analysis indicated no typical injuries associated with a fall from such a height. Instead, evidence pointed to a different cause of death, nasal-oral blockage, meaning someone may have suffocated her before staging the scene. This finding raised serious questions about what had really happened in that guest bedroom. Investigators turned to the home security system, which featured 6 surveillance cameras. One of the cameras had been recording during the time of the incident. Although the footage did not capture the exact moment Nada was pushed or thrown, it did record the moment her body hit the ground. Crucially, a light from the guest bedroom created a shadow on the lawn below. The shadow showed a person with short hair appearing to lift a heavy object, presumably Nada's body, toward the window shortly before she was seen falling. This led detectives to a grim realization. The scene had been staged to mimic an accident, while the reality pointed to a calculated and deliberate act of murder. As detectives began to piece together the truth behind Nada Hirania's death, they relied heavily on two key sources: surveillance footage from the family's home and the results of the autopsy conducted by the medical examiner, Dr. Ojabisa J. Dragovic. Together, these sources provided a factual and chilling reconstruction of what really happened on the morning of August 21st, 2017. The family's home was equipped with 6 surveillance cameras, one of which recorded the exact moment Nada's body fell to patio. Importantly, the footage did not show her coming out of the window by herself. Instead, the camera captured the glow of a light from the guest bedroom, which cast clear shadows on the grass below. Within these shadows, investigators observed a figure with short hair lifting a heavy object toward the window, moments before Nada's body was seen falling. Though the video did not reveal exact identities, the activity it captured directly contradicted the idea of an accidental fall. Simultaneously, Dr. Dragovic's autopsy findings strengthened suspicions of foul play. He determined that Nada had not died from injuries sustained in a fall. Instead, her death was caused by nasal oral blockage, indicating that she had likely been suffocated. The blockage could have resulted from a pillow or cloth being forced over her face, a method consistent with a deliberate act of murder rather than an accident. These two pieces of evidence, visual and medical, formed the foundation of the investigation's shift from accident to homicide. The shadows on the lawn and the forensic proof of suffocation painted a clear picture. Nada Hirani had been killed before her body was thrown out the window, and the crime scene had been intentionally staged to hide the truth. As investigators ruled out the possibility of an accidental fall, their attention naturally turned to the people inside the house at the time of Nada Hirania's death. The only male present that morning was her 16-year-old son, Mohammed Al-Tantawi. With Dr. Basil Al-Tantawi confirmed to be miles away on probation and tracked by an electronic monitoring device, Mohammed quickly became the focus of the investigation. Initially, Mohammed denied having any involvement in the incident. When questioned by detectives, he insisted that he had not been in the guest room and knew nothing about what had happened. However, under continued questioning, his story began to shift. He later claimed that he had interacted with his mother that morning, saying she asked him to get her cleaning spray. He also stated that he was holding the ladder while she cleaned and that she accidentally fell. Detectives, however, were already armed with forensic facts that contradicted this version of events. The autopsy confirmed that Nada had died from suffocation before her body hit the ground, making an accidental fall impossible. Surveillance footage showed a shadowed figure appearing to lift something heavy to the window shortly before Nada's body was seen falling, casting further doubt on Mohammed's account. As the investigation deepened, friends of the family provided key insights into Mohammed's relationship with his mother. They described a growing resentment toward Nada, especially as she became more independent and stopped adhering to traditional expectations. Mohammed blamed her for the breakdown of the family and reportedly felt that she had betrayed their values. Investigators learned he had even changed her name in his phone contacts to Dog, underscoring the level of animosity he felt. With inconsistencies in his statements and a clear motive forming, Mohammed Al-Tantawi moved from being a witness to the central suspect in a case that now clearly pointed to premeditated murder. Following the investigation and mounting evidence against Mohammed Al-Tantawi, authorities arrested the 16-year-old and charged him with first-degree premeditated murder in connection with the death of his mother, Nada Hirani. However, the road to trial would be long and legally complex, with significant disputes over the admissibility of Mohammed's statements to law enforcement. During initial police interviews, Mohammed had changed his story several times, first denying involvement, then claiming to have helped his mother clean when she allegedly fell. His defense team later argued that these statements should be thrown out, citing that Mohammed was a minor at the time and was allegedly guided towards certain answers by detectives. They claimed that the investigators presented him with scenarios, subtly influencing his version of events. The legal battle over the confession escalated to the Michigan Supreme Court. Ultimately, prosecutors agreed not to use Muhammad's statements at trial, opting instead to build their case on the substantial circumstantial evidence available. This included the surveillance footage showing suspicious shadows consistent with someone lifting an object out the window, the forensic conclusion that Nada was already deceased before the fall, and Muhammad's behavior following the incident. Cell phone records also revealed that Muhammad and his father, Dr. Basil Al-Tantawi, exchanged approximately 20 calls and texts on the morning of the murder. While these communications raised suspicions, especially given the family's history of domestic conflict, no direct evidence tied Basil to the crime. He was never charged. Despite the absence of confession and the lack of physical evidence directly linking Muhammad to the act, prosecutors remained confident that the totality of circumstantial evidence told a compelling and credible story of premeditated murder. The case proceeded to trial several years later, where a jury would be asked to weigh that evidence and determine the truth. In 2022, several years after the murder of Nada Hurani, her son Muhammad Al-Tantawi finally stood trial for first-degree premeditated murder. With his earlier statements the police excluded from evidence, the prosecution relied heavily on circumstantial facts, surveillance footage, and witness testimony to present their case. Prosecutors framed the murder as the result of a deteriorating mother-son relationship, exacerbated by the family's ongoing divorce proceedings. They pointed out that Muhammad had changed Nada's name in his phone to Dog, a reflection of the deep resentment he reportedly held toward her. Witnesses had previously told investigators that Muhammad blamed Nada for the family's breakdown and viewed her increasing independence and Americanization as betrayals of their values. Central to the prosecution's case was the testimony of Aya Al-Tantawi, Muhammad's younger sister. She described the tension in the household, particularly after the domestic violence charge against their father and the subsequent divorce. Aya told the court that Muhammad believed Nada was trying to destroy their family and take everything from their father, including money and property. Surveillance footage also played a significant role. Although it did not show the exact moment of the murder, it captured shadows consistent with someone lifting a body to the window just before Nada was seen falling. Footage in the aftermath further appeared to show Muhammad stopping CPR efforts, even as he continued to count aloud with the dispatcher. Prosecutors argued this was staged behavior and another indication of a cover-up. Muhammad's defense team maintained that there was no physical evidence directly tying him to the murder. They questioned the clarity and reliability of the shadow footage and emphasized that Muhammad had planned to move in with his father, offering no motive to kill Nada. However, the jury ultimately found the circumstantial evidence compelling. Muhammad Al-Tantawi was found guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. The court sentenced him to 35 to 60 years in prison. The trial closed a painful chapter for the Al-Tantawi family and marked a legal resolution in a case shaped by complex family dynamics, shifting identities, and ultimately, a tragic death. This final section focuses on Aya Al-Tantawi's life in the wake of her mother Nada Hurani's murder and her brother Muhammad's conviction. After the tragedy, Aya made the significant decision to enter the foster care system rather than live with her father, Dr. Basil Al-Tantawi. Her choice was shaped by years of witnessing abuse and fearing for her safety. Aya openly stated that she could not trust her father due to what she had seen him do to her mother, including physical violence during the marriage. One of the most emotionally charged moments occurred during Muhammad's sentencing hearing. While her father gave a statement in support of Muhammad and barely mentioned Nada, Aya confronted him afterward in the courthouse hallway. Her outburst, captured and later discussed, expressed years of pent-up anger and disappointment. She screamed at him, declaring that he meant nothing to her, a moment that symbolized her emotional breaking point after enduring years of dysfunction and trauma. Since then, Aya has had no contact with her father and is focused on building a new life. She completed college in just 3 years and plans to attend law school. Her goal is to advocate for children who experience similar family abuse and trauma. Aya's journey represents resilience and a commitment to transformation, grounded entirely in real-life decisions and public statements. Her forward-looking path serves as a closing reflection on the long-term consequences of domestic violence and familial betrayal, all rooted in the verified facts of this case.